definitely have time for questions too to help personalize it based off of wherever you're at with the platform. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna get started. So welcome, Sam and Steve. You both have had early access. So you've got that general notion for what Skilltrees are. As a reminder, our main goal is we want to help everyone figure out how to learn and build new skills in the age of AI. So we're not just training AI agents in the 21st century, but human agency is just so important to us. And it's never been a better time to learn skills that are totally out of your wheelhouse or double down in areas that are more important for you. So I was just talking to a Series A machine learning engineer doing automated chemical plants. He's like, man, there's so much on the fundamental like diffusion model side. I just want to use a skill tree to like understand the fundamental math better because they're doing more research applications. So that's our main goal: help people learn and build anything.
This call will be recorded and monitored.
Welcome, Blissith. We're just getting started. So a goal for this, we're going to do a demo. We're going to talk about the latest. You all know this is an MVP form. Happy to take questions afterwards. And if you don't have access to Skilltrees, we'll get you access to Skilltrees afterwards. And so just as a refresher, this setup, we're inspired by video games. So like Skyrim, where every character or hero seems to have the perfect path to what to build. We're running, what does it look like to build those skill trees out for humans working on different projects? And so there's three main parts to the platform. You've got an assistant coach chat on the left with different tools, and we'll cover what those tools mean. And then as you build out a tree, you'll get a guide on the right. So let's actually just jump right into a tree. So this morning I was looking at cooling infrastructure for AI data centers. One of the things I help run in the Bay Area is a hardware meetup, and the hyperscaling here for data center infrastructure is wild. There is so much around the cable management, the new chips coming out, the large scale infrastructure. So what I did is I just typed it in here to the chat. The tree creation skill, that's the newest thing we just shipped in the last couple of weeks. And what that's going to do is it can take any topic, could be fun and creative, like how to cook a great salmon for dinner, or it can be as technical as trying to understand infra for data centers. And what it does is it tries to figure out, okay, based off of this topic, what are the top 10 to 15 guides that help someone get a project level understanding? So you can see it's generating different nodes here: rack cooling level, airflow management, material compatibility. And the first thing that pops up is going to be that first guide. Each guide is set up as some kind of content to help you understand that initial topic. So right now we're doing a research workflow where we're trying to find the top YouTube video. So this is pulling out a 2020 liquid cooling solution, looks like from a virtual summit, creating a one-pager. So taking the context from that it has to figure out what's the main thing you need to understand here. So we've got airflow basics, hot aisle configuration. And then lastly, in terms of the guide, being able to get immediate feedback. The way this guide is set up is almost like your personal like lab notebook, where right now it's text entry. And for that text entry, you can put in anything you're noting as you're understanding that concept or as you're working on a project. So this says design a cooling plan for rack for AI servers. Let's just take one thing here. Let's say we're really focused on physical barriers using new insulation. And so as you're taking notes, as you're testing different things, what this part of the guide is the ability to submit things for immediate feedback. And this is a feature I'm really personally excited for, because getting feedback helps with different iteration. And so as this is in beta mode, everything is not fully optimized yet, so it takes a little bit of time. And at the bottom too, we've got different resources here too to also jump into that topic. So the YouTube video one-pager isn't enough to get started. The whole goal for these guides is it helps kick off that particular topic. So we can see here, this physical barriers were not solve the rack cooling system problem, which is okay. So I'm getting 5 out of 50 points. Again, with that video game level up mentality. Each guide right now, we're just putting at 50, almost like think of it like XP points, just to get a reference point for the feedback, to be able to say, based off of what you submitted, this is how much you understand, or this is how close it is to really completing this guide. And then the best part here is being able to get feedback, right? So, hey, physical barriers aren't enough. Make sure you look at airflow basics, being able to separate hot and cold aisles. That's important. Focus on the actual cooling solution. So don't just look at the physical barriers. We've got in-row units, liquid cooling, and also other monitoring techniques. So based off that feedback, you said, great. I also am looking at liquid cooling on chip. And so every time you get feedback that's helpful, or as you make progress, you can resubmit just right away to get that feedback of like, how close am I to understanding and completing this particular guide. Cool. So better than 5, but still not. We have 25 set as a arbitrary passing point. So 15 still not quite there. And again, we're getting new feedback now too. Like, hey, make sure usually when you're just describing a cooling system, make sure you describe the airflow path. So already just in the first 2 or 3 minutes, I'm getting more interactive information around learning rack level cooling versus just like watching a video or listening to a podcast by itself. So we've got these guides. Again, these guides are on the right side. And the way that this tree, so this is just that first node in the tree. So in terms of what the tree creation tool decided was that if you understand rack level cooling, you've got that first step in understanding the higher objective, which is cooling infrastructure for data centers. So the way that the trees are set up right now is the trunk are the main projects. So you've got rack level cooling system, looking at what liquid cooling looks like for high density racks, and then architecting a full cooling system design. And at each project in the trunk, there's different branches, and those branches have different fundamentals that should help complete or understand that topic better. So the first branch node underneath designing a rack cooling system, thermodynamics fundamentals, and we now have a whole thing that's around what heat transfer looks like and thermal conductivity. Same guide structure, so you're gonna get YouTube video, 1-pager, feedback with the ability to submit information and get feedback there, and then resources at the bottom. And so, yeah, this is a quick 2-minute demo. We've got the tree set up. We've been shipping new features every week based off of feedback too from people trying it. So the trees was the #1 asked things. And initially we launched making individual guides, which you can make if you wanted to go down thermal dynamic fundamentals and just go down that rabbit hole. You could make single guides based off of topics that you're interested in. And the trees are really set up to just get that first set of 10 to 15 guides out. So you can go 0 to 1 in a space. That's where it's at right now. Some of the features we have that we're working on is, one, how do we do context enrichment when you're making a tree? So we're testing right now a YouTube tool. So the assumption there is if you find your own YouTube tutorial or technical walkthrough or interesting video, can it listen and read the YouTube video and figure out all the information in between to make a tree? So we're testing out different tools for what seeds the tree. So instead of just the research agent trying to figure out what YouTube videos to start, sometimes there's some really good context for starting points. And what we've been testing out internally is for like history, philosophy, food, creative activities. It's a lot of really rich content. So making that actionable has been interesting. The next thing we're working on too is trying to figure out how to personalize this. So the whole goal for this is that like my skill tree for cooling infra is going to be different than Sam's, which will be different than Dylan's. Right now, it has context across what's on the canvas, what you've talked about in chat, what's on the guide. So as you talk to the chat, say, I need help with fundamentals, walk me through main equation. The more you use the platform, the more context it has for personalizing the support for you. So we just got that context layer working in the last 2 weeks where everything that you see is also what the coaching assistant sees. And our next goal here, so you see, I could chat just around this heat transfer equation as much as I needed to for support. So as I'm going through this guide, I've got a coaching assistant here. And our next step is, well, if it has the context for what's in the tree and where you're at, how do we actually also get your current understanding and what your main objective is? So that's been the #1 requested feature in the last week. It's like, hey, I'm not starting at like high school level physics for heat transfer. I've got a PhD and I'm looking at some really obscure data or simulations or whatever it may be. So what we're looking at right now is how do we help personalize that onboarding, both in the act of making a tree, but also so that the dashboard itself really adapts to how you're coming in and then how you want to level up. And so right now the assumption is, hey, based off the topic, let's just make that first tree. And we're just seeing how do people reply to this kind of design. And those are the next 2 things on the roadmap: tool use, like YouTube videos to seed trees, and then that even more personalized context so that this particular tree meets you where you're at and then helps you bump up where you want to. So that's it for the demo. Happy to demo specific features, go over specific use cases, answer general questions. We had some really great QA for people who signed up for the event. Steve, I saw you raise your hand. You wanna ask a question?
Well, I mean, there was Yeah, actually, not the question that I was going to ask, but I'm a little bit unclear on the difference between those three tabs: chat, guide creation, and tree creation. Is guide a subset of tree?
Yes, exactly. So chat is just like a normal chat where you're talking with, this chat is set up as a skills coach. So it has the persona of helping you level up, helping answer questions, giving personalized feedback. So chat is just using the window to chat. Guide creation is every single step in a tree is a guide. So let's say under thermodynamics, I wanted to understand, let's go to chat. Chat gave us heat transfer. What's a different kind of heat transfer equation? So let's say you're reviewing fundamentals of thermodynamics, and we've got a new topic that you wanted to branch on the tree. The Cool. Let's say we actually want to understand heat transfer coefficient better. So our goal is, as this tree is set up, we want to help people fork and double down almost in like a rabbit hole style for their own parts of the tree. So for thermodynamic fundamentals, if I click plus here or I click guide creation, what that's going to do is I can now make one specific guide. So I'm just adding one guide at a time to the tree. Let's say I really want to focus on material differences for heat transfer coefficient. That's something I want to brush up on. And so as I hit enter there, what it should be doing is it should be creating a single guide here underneath this node. So it's a way for you to be able to add single steps, especially if you're on a specific node and guide already and you want more information. And then the tree tool overall, the tree is used as a way to create the whole tree at once. So it solves the blank canvas problem. So you can see here, just this froze. So again, we're testing this. If anything happens, you just hit refresh. And then let's see. So right here, we added one guide on material differences. We can see it popped up here. And then what we're getting here is a material heat transfer guide. And it's now it's talking about heat transfer overall, difference between, looks like, yeah, glass, wood, different things. So to recap, chat is your personal assistant coach to answer questions. Guide is single guide creation as you're really trying to make this skill tree your own, and everyone's going to have different paths. And then tree creation creates the whole tree at once, because we want to help people figure out what they don't know.
Got it. So one of the things that I just wanted to, I'm sure that you've heard this, and I'm sure it's probably already on your roadmap, but just in case, I think management of my list of projects is high on my wish list.
Yeah, tell us more. Is that right now? Previously, for those who've been with us since early days, we had no way to go back. We now just have all of the trees in a list here. I know that doesn't solve the management problem. It's more just going back to click through different trees that were created. So tell me a little bit, Steve, what's that management opportunity look like for you?
Yeah, so go back to where you just were, because that's exactly what I was talking about.
Yep.
I'd like to be able to rename, so I've got a ton of new canvases in there.
Yep.
Also, and I'd also like to be able to delete.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's basically what I was thinking.
Solid request on the roadmap. Appreciate it. Or open to all feedback. We're shipping features as we go, so appreciate that.
Yeah. Rename is probably one our most requested feature right now. So
yeah, I mean that makes sense, because if you've got 30 new canvases, how do you know which one's which?
Yeah.
And if it says new canvas right now, so because we're testing this, there's some quirks to the platform. Every time you go to the landing page, it creates a new canvas ID. So if it says new canvas in the list, that's usually because it's blank. So you might have been trying to go to a current tree and it just made a new page. So but great feedback.
Yeah, that's what I was experiencing. I was trying to find the canvas that I had created earlier, and I was just like, okay, find the needle in the haystack of all the new canvases. So that was definitely painful.
Awesome feedback. Really, really appreciate it. Awesome. Any other questions, or anyone want to see any other part of the platform?
One other thing I've been curious about is when the tree is created itself, is there any meaning behind the hierarchy of the nodes themselves? And how should I think about that? Is it more complex as I go higher up the tree? Is it, how does the spatial relationship of the specific guides relate to the topic as a whole?
Great question. So right now, we're assuming that people want a slow warm up. And so each of the central guides is more focused around like a core project or an action or practice you can take that gets something done. And they increase in complexity. So the first one, if we think of it like a logarithmic scale of 0 to 100%, this one's at like 10 to 20%, this is at 50, 60%, and this is pushing that like 60 to 100%. And for some people, you're really, hey, I don't need this first node. It's interesting, but I can skip that. You can skip with that. And right now, the branches specifically, it's trying to say, based off of this project and this difficulty, what are the top topics that you should be starting with? So it's trying to guess and filter based off of this project, what's relevant to that. And so if you're like, hey, some of this is relevant, but not, you can just start adding your own guides. You can also, we've been doing a lot of just like single line prompting with trees, because we just assume like, even like a human user of so many different tools, I want the tool to take care of as much as it can. Another opportunity here is try to add even more information in context when you're making trees. If you want something more specific, more technical, I think that's a big area to explore. So yeah, right now it's different levels of projects, and the assumption is this top node completes that first take at whatever the topic is, and then the branches themselves are all relational to that project specifically.
Got it. Thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's the number one feedback has been editing, renaming, managing trees. Number two feedback has been personalization. The number three feedback, which has been awesome, is like, hey, how do we make this more intuitive? So you don't have to hear a talking head talk about projects versus branches. And so we've got a few ideas here, and that's something we're just setting up for this month's roadmap, and figuring out what a more intuitive tree schema looks like, or canvas looks like. There's opportunity there. So.
Cool. Well, I'll just say, I think you guys are on to like a market that's about to get completely disrupted. Just education, broad brush education is, you know, it's been for a long time now. I mean, even like university level education, for a long time now, it's been just broken, and everybody knows it. And yeah, I think you guys are onto something that could be huge.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's something we're both really passionate about, where Dylan and I are self-taught in different areas. And while we both have had awesome experiences across startups or different places of learning and building, there's not a lot of places that help you, one, keep up with the latest. So a lot of people ask, like, why are you using YouTube as like one of the parts of the guides? Well, one, it's a video, so it's interactive. It's nicer than just all text. But two, there's creators right now that are spending tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars a month making the best videos possible on all different topics. How are we not using that as just a starting point? We don't think YouTube's not going to solve all of the build problems, but what an amazing kind of rich place to start. And so, yeah, to your point, Steve, really figuring out how to distribute structured information so you can actually practice, get personalized feedback. We're really excited to see how far it can go. And the things we've been playing with this week has been like, while we've been focusing on technical skills, leveling up machine learning or product, because those are areas that we're personally passionate about, we've been trying out different areas, like even like food. So like right now as a vegetarian, it's hard to get really good protein. And I had a friend who made homemade tempeh that was just so good. And now I have a skill tree of like, what does it look like? And the thing I didn't know is I didn't know you could ferment things like cashews or beans, like other things than general inputs for a tempeh. Now I've got more than just a single recipe. I've got a skill tree for like, what does it look like to design homemade tempeh if I want to eat well? Which is like such a specific thing that I'm just curious about. I'm not trying to go to culinary school and pay the $1,000 for the 5-hour course, but I don't want to look at just like recipes. I want to really understand the fundamentals here. So it's really interesting to think about how will different people use this as different areas of their life, not just projects, not just professional, but also personal and fun. It really, yeah, I think the fundamental increases in AI bring that back where everyone can level up in ways that they want to also.
Yeah, totally. And this is kind of almost a random thought, but it just popped into my head that the homeschooling community could definitely use this. Yeah. I think they're weird, but that's just my opinion.
The last role I was working at was helping teenagers build in areas like quantum computing or synthetic biology. And I think the interesting thing recently, homeschooling has actually been a really viable option for families that value like independent thinking. They know that school in itself doesn't support individual learning. So definitely a lot of opportunity there. we've been starting focusing with professionals to start, because our assumption is that adult learners and professionals, they have the highest demands. So we can't make adults happy. No way we're going to make kids happy, just in terms of the rigor, both in terms of what the skill trees can do and what the topics are. And so I think even just yesterday, actually, we've been running intro to agent workshops. So figuring out the role that community plays on top of the platform itself. And MBA alum was like, can we run a vibe coding agent workshop for kids? Like, we have a kid who's a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. And I was like, it's never been easier for a 5-year-old to build something, or whatever age, 45, 55-year-old. So yeah, to your point, Steve, it's really interesting how these tools trickle down. We've got a question in chat from Blitzith. Yep, we're going to send the recording afterwards. You'll have the recording. If you have any questions now, feel free to ask. And also happy to set you up with a trial account. We're giving away accounts for free because we want to make sure this is accessible. And we don't know what we don't know. We're designed it for us. And when people like Sam and Steve give them great feedback along the way. So happy to give you access to try it out.
Okay. I found that, I'm sure you saw it in the chat, but it's called Creatium.
Yeah.
And I think I found it on Product Hunt. I'm not sure about that, but I think I did. And what they're doing that I think is interesting is they're putting interactivity and gamification into the learning path, which I'm sure you guys have thought about.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks. All right, we'll check it out afterwards. And I think on our side, we're trying to build the gamification as part of the platform structure. So the idea of a skill tree, you've got experience points you're leveling up on. Once you build one tree, this isn't a functionality yet, but as people like the first tree, what does the second tree look like? If you're going maybe more down a fundamental route, or you're going on an application route. So there's video games and gamifications are baked into the core structure of the platform. And there's so much to be done here based off of like what people like. And I think a great example of this is Duolingo. Being able to take every single language and just break it down to single node. I think that it goes a little bit too far into the gamification, but it works for people who like it. And so, yeah, appreciate you sharing that resource. We'll check it out after.
Sure. Duolingo is an interesting case study. I don't know how much you've been following that, but they've inspired an awful lot of passion.
Yes. Yeah. I would say, I think for language learning, especially with the globalization of content on social media, people have aspirations to travel or go different places. So definitely caught a tidal wave there, and have heard the both good and bad sides. I've had the good side. Travel and Duolingo is the only way that they keep up with their language skills. And then I've also heard the bad sides where people are like, hey, I talk to someone who's native in a language. I learn way more in an hour than I do 10 hours on Duolingo. So pros and cons to it, but it's been, at least as a platform that is scientifically, through a data-driven process, iterate what interfaces make sense, what the learning structure looks like. It's a really interesting one.
Yeah, we could have a whole sidebar on that, but
yeah, I'll say we'll talk more afterwards. Yeah, any other questions anyone has, any feedback? I'm happy to field those now.
One other question I had was about the when you're doing the activities for each, or the action items for each node. Yep. Is each of them always scored on like a 0 to 50 scale, or are those cumulative for the whole tree? Is there any relationship between the activities at each step?
Great question. The activities are stacked relationally, like we talked about on the tree. Specifically, that's locked into each guide right now, because the whole goal for this is just to understand, based off of this guide, for fundamental understanding, for actually getting through a step in the process or a full project, did you complete it? And not in like a subjective way, but from like a, hey, based off of understanding this information, is this based off the notes you sent here, do you actually understand what you're working on? So this was inspired by the Feynman technique, where you do something, you tell someone else about it, and if there's a gap, you get that feedback back right away. The 50 points is subjective. And happy to hear feedback from people. I think there's a whole area where they could be weighted at different points. And I think just to start, we don't know if people actually want to collect XP points, right? So if everyone's like, hey, I don't care about the points, then no need to build out a full weighted system. We've leveled everything at 50 to start, because that creates a subjective benchmark for the eval. So you in using large language models, when you're testing like agentic workflows, evals can use the LLMs themselves. It's called LLM as a judge, or LLM as a scorer. And what we found was using 1 to 100, because the pre-training data set has everything in the world, it's very biased towards school. So it thinks like, oh, Sam's trying to get an A right now. Or like, this is not a school-based platform. You're not
Right.
trying to go back to school and get certifications or pass tests. Maybe some people are, but that's not the core part of the platform. So what we found with using 50 points was we could set a benchmark of what 1, 2, 5, 25, 35, 50 means. And it's going to be variable depending on the topic. So it's really just for this guide in particular, where are you in terms of total completion? Right now, and that's actually one of the guides we're writing right now, just for the product updates. 25 is passing. So anything less than 25 is like, hey, you're missing something core and fundamental. 30 to 40 is like, hey, this is good. This is going to be just one of the top, call it 60, 70%. And then anything above 45 is like amazing. It's like you taught the LLM something it didn't know. So those are the subjective marks right now. And I think hearing from people, do they like the gamification? Do they want different points? Like, yeah, curious to hear your take, just hearing the intention behind it and what you would expect or what you would think there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had forgotten that was like a part of it, the gamification part of it, but it's I think, and part of why I wasn't so super clear on it was that like you just see the action item here, you don't even know that there's a rating scale behind it that's gonna give you feedback on it. So maybe, is there a way to like expose that right off the bat so people kind of have that framework in mind, or it can help them better understand what that score means when they see that? Might be something to consider. And then the other thing that I found in looking at them was like, especially if it's a subject that I am really out of my depth in and don't have any kind of framework of knowledge around, is like, oh, I get this action item, but I don't feel equipped to do it. So like, what are the tools that I need? What are the, like, can you help me break this action item down even a little bit more granular way so that I can at least get started on it? But like, so some of the things it was like, I did one on like quantum computing, and it was like, oh, write a Python script to, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's just like, oh, okay, well, like, I don't even quite, I mean, sure, I know Python, but I don't even know like how I would attempt to start to do this first task. So immediately it was like a blocker and a barrier. And then I was like, okay, well, that maybe I could have like leveraged the chat then at that point, but I didn't even think about that. So I don't know, just giving a little bit more of a clear progression for people could be helpful.
It's great feedback. I think being able to say, hey, this is something to complete. The two things we have on the roadmap is, one, initially we were actually going to lock every single step. So you had to go in order and you had to pass node number 1 to get to node number 2. Like, this is not school, and this isn't quite as good as a video game where every step is valuable. So one of the things we have on the roadmap is, what if everything was grayed out so it looks incomplete? As soon as you open up a guide, it becomes active. So maybe it's a certain color. And then I think to your point, being able to say, hey, this is scored 0 out of 50, incomplete. Being able to just get something here where you're like, okay, let's see what that looks like. And then it's so interesting. We've just been working on single functionality in the chat, on the canvas, and on the guide. And I think there's also this opportunity, to your point, how do we start making so that it feels really integrated? So if you're lost here, maybe if you highlight this, it says, hey, make me a guide, I'm stuck. If you're like, hey, I can't complete this, I don't know if that's there. Right now, to your point, the way we've baked that out is we're just assuming to start. I know it's clunky. People hate the copy pasta, but if you copy and paste what you're stuck, you're like, how do I break this down further?
Yeah, give me a recipe. What's a good recipe to start with for beginners or whatever, something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a hacky way to get started. I know, and anything that includes more than just clicking is a friction point to start. This is the closest way to make sure. There's so many different ways we could do it that for you and as you're working too, you can use the chat to start doing that. And if you have different ideas of like, nope, I would love to go from like guide to guide. So like, is this a tree behind it? Or hey, I just need a little explainer here, like whatever this looks like. Feel free, as you if you've got specific ideas, you can share along.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as I think about it more and work with it more, I'm sure more thoughts and reactions will surface. So.
Awesome feedback. Appreciate it coming in. I know we're at time. If you all have to hop, feel free to hop. You've got us an email. You can ask us any question. Our goal is not to just help with Skilltrees. If you've got general questions, we are the humans in the loop right now, so feel free to send them along. appreciate the questions and feedback you've given here. And we're happy to stay on a few minutes longer too if people have questions about the platform or also just general questions. So thanks for joining for this one. And if you've got any questions, we can hang out for a few more minutes.
Sounds good. Thanks as always.
Take care.
Cheers.
Yeah, thanks, guys. What's the best way to give you product feedback as it like occurs to me whenever I'm
We will meet you. We'll meet you wherever you're at. If you want to email us, email us. If Steve, if you want my phone number, I'll give you my phone number. You're on Slack. Slack works well too. So whatever works easiest for you. Yeah. What do you have a preference?
Okay. I don't have a preference, but sometimes like when I'm using it, just something might pop into my head. Also, I don't know why, but I stopped getting the invitations to your weekly. You have weekly check-ins, right? I'm getting the summaries of them, but I'm not getting invited to them anymore.
Interesting. I will. So in the summaries, so let me just show this.
I think it's from Substack, right?
Yeah. So the summaries are actually the invitations. So let me show you.
Oh, all right. I must have missed it.
Totally okay. We've just put everything into one email, and so the email is always going to be formatted in this way. The top line is the invite for that next week. So you can see this was last week, so it was the invite for today. The recap, if you're like, hey, I'm not joining you all weekly for office hours, build-alongs, or demos. So they're always send a recap so you have it. And then we'll just share a recent demo of what someone's built through the community or through Skilltrees. And so the top invite on the top list on this Sunday email will always have the next week's invite for you.
Has it always been that way? Am I just being...
It has always been this way, and that's good feedback for us. I assume people don't want multiple emails, so we've just been putting everything into a once a week update. So
I think you're right. I'm getting deluged with Luma and Eventbrite and Meetup and anyway. Good. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. Take care.